Hi everybody, this is Dave with NAPCO Tech Support. Welcome to the second of a three-part series explaining advanced operator options. Today I will be explaining in detail how to manage roles and privileges in AirAccess. In the next video, I will be covering how to build a complicated hierarchy that will incorporate everything covered in the first two videos. To understand how to create partitions, look up part 1 of this series. Please feel free to pause the video at any time if it makes it easier for you to follow along. We discussed in the previous video how we can make a partition to restrict access to specific radios. You can restrict what part of the AirAccess website an operator can access by setting up privileges. As I hover over the individual categories like System, Access, and Administration, you can see the subcategories listed below each. With privileges, you can restrict what subcategories an operator can see and modify. If you hover over Administration and click on Set Up Roles and Privileges, it will take you to the current list of roles. I'm going to choose to edit my main role, which is the one with my account number. To edit the role, you can double-click on it or select it and then click Edit. This will bring you to the Privileges tab. On the left, you will see Unassigned Plugins. Then to the right of that is the Assigned Plugins, then Operator Privileges, followed by the Privilege level. I understand it's a little intimidating when you first look at this page. I was intimidated too. I remember thinking, what are all of these things here? What do they mean? It's not as bad as it looks, it just requires some explanation. Each one of these plugins corresponds to a subcategory at the top. The first in the list is Access Groups. It corresponds to access groups underneath Access. And to the right, you have the Operator Privileges for the subcategory. Currently, you can see this role has full access set for the access group. And beneath the access group, it has more subcategories that you can restrict or allow access to. For example, you see here where it says Get Template, and to the right, it has full access, read-only, and hidden. Well, if we go to the access groups page, we have the ability to edit an existing access group because we have full access. And when we edit that access group, we see up towards the top middle, it says Get Template. If Get Template was set to hidden, we wouldn't see it at all. If it was set to read only, we would be able to see the setting but not change it. But because it is set to full access, we can modify which template it is using and save it. For the most part, the names are a 1-to-1 correlation. The name you see in the list is named the exact same name under one of the categories, with only a few exceptions. For example, Help is located over where your logout is. The next two that might confuse you are Find Usage and Wireless Lock. You will see that when I click on them, no settings will show for the privileges. Well, that's because the user I'm currently logged in as has this privilege set to hidden. In order for me to explain more, I'm going to log out of this user account and log in as my dealer account. Now that I am logged in as the dealer, when I click on Wireless Lock, you can now see the setting is set to hidden. The reason it is hidden by default is because the Wireless Lock plugin is associated with the wireless configuration of the locks, and it is generally a bad idea to give the end user access to this location. By default, the dealer is the only person who has access to this location. But if for some reason you want to give a user the rights to modify this location, this is where you would do it. For demonstration's sake, I'm going to give the main end user for this company full access for wireless locks. Now when I log back in with my main company user, you will see that I now have access to the wireless configuration plugin. Before we move on, I want to go over the other feature that is usually restricted to just the dealer, and that is the Find Usage plugin. Currently, I am logged back in as the dealer, so you will see Find Usage located under Access. We recommend not allowing access to this section unless you have a client that knows what they are doing. As for all other plugins, when you are logged in as the dealer, you will see they aren't hard to find. It may take some time to get used to where they are located and what they mean, but for now, just understand, privileges are to allow or restrict access to categories on the website. In the previous video, I made a quick role just to show you how to add a partition. That role wasn't something you would use in the real world because it had everything. So today, we are going to create a custom role. To create a custom role, hover over Administration and click on Set Up Roles and Privileges. When the page with the role name shows up, click on Add. Let's give our role a name. I'm going to call mine Store Manager. Now we need to decide what we want this person to be able to do. Well, I want this person to be able to add and remove personnel, which remember is badge holders and pin holders. I basically want them to have access to everything under the access category except lockdown. I'm going to hide lockdown from them. So I will move personnel, badge holders in, access groups, and lockdown areas over to the right. Personnel, I'm going to give them full access. Badge holders in, full access. Access groups, yes. I want them to be able to make and modify access groups, so full access. Okay, lockdown area. I don't want them to see this at all, so I'm going to set it to hidden. Let's give them access to the guard station. Let them modify holiday schedules. Give them manual control of the doors. Here we can give them the ability to modify the automated text messaging and emails. Let's add the ability to pull reports. But I'm going to hide the option to use the audit trail. I will give them access to the time schedules, view history, and lastly, I'm going to hide the wireless config from them. Now remember, before you save, you have to assign a partition to your role. This is why I chose to start with the partition video first, because if you decide to assign the main partition to this role as a temporary measure, you won't be able to unassign it later. Once the main partition is assigned to a role, it cannot be unassigned. So make sure you make your partition first, or check and see if one of the existing ones suits your needs. So you may be thinking to yourself, Dave, why doesn't Air Access already have a role like the one you just made? Well, it does. It's the HR role. If you go into the HR role, you will see the exact settings as the one in my example. This pre-existing role is a perfect role for someone that you want to have access to the radio. It's also predefined to be able to modify the local personnel, manage the local doors, and not have access to modify operator. By default, when you register a radio, Air Access creates 4 roles and 4 partitions. One role will have your account number for the name, and that role will have access to every radio registered to that account. Another role called HR, which I just showed you, has access to personnel and the ability to manually control the locks. One called Security, which has manual control of the doors, can view personnel but cannot edit them, and one for Mobile, which by default can only view the status of a few things. In the next video, we are going to take everything I went over in these first 2 videos and build this hierarchy right here. If you need more videos about troubleshooting, or even if you just need a manual for an alarm lock or NAPCO device, go to our tech library at tech.napcosecurity.com.